Some people say fate takes us where we're supposed to be, but not everyone is happy with that. Today's character, Simon Fisher, is one of those people. Simon Fisher is a man who loves magic and hopes desperately and works hard to try to rise above where fate has currently placed him. Hi, I'm Mike Champagne, and this is Story Break, the channel where you tune in to listen to a story every now and then, just to give yourself a chance to relax. The mystery of Simon Fisher is a strange story, but one I think you'll find interesting. If you prefer just to listen, you can find us on Apple or Spotify, or you can watch this station to actually see the story being performed for you. And now, the mystery of Simon Fisher. Unseen but sounding thunderous, the coin dropped on the wooden floor, rolling a few feet and clattering as it spiraled to a stop. Shit, he thought. He stood there holding out an empty left hand with his right hand cupped slightly to palm the coin. The coin he had dropped. A stupid, simple trick, and he blew it. His mother stood looking on with an agonized expression on her face. It was her fault. She was the one who encouraged him to show his little cousin a trick. Everybody heard it drop and roll loudly on the wood floor where it jiggled to a rest. His cousin Rocky moaned softly and rolled his eyes when it happened. And there was 5-year-old Benny sitting expectantly, looking only at him like he was the second coming. They all shifted in their seats uncomfortably. Someone coughed nervously. He stood there like a department store dummy, naked in the middle of the display floor. After a long moment of agony, he thought of a way to save face. Benny, this is a trick anyone can do. I'm going to teach it to you so you can do it for all your friends, okay? All right. Now, see, this hand is empty, right? Well, actually, both hands are empty, see? Good. Now, that's not what's important. What's important is how you do this trick. Now, you hold the coin in this hand. Then you come around with the other hand and pretend to scoop it up. But what you're really doing is keeping the coin in the first hand. And then you hold up the closed empty hand for everyone to see and open it up to show the coin is gone. But you've still got it hidden in this hand. And then you reach behind a volunteer's ear and abracadabra, the coin appears. As he reached his hand, he pulled a coin from the child's ear. What the hell? Simon jumped slightly and dropped the coin again like it was a hot coal. The whole group gasped in surprise. They burst into laughter and applause as Simon himself looked astonished. He picked up the coin in real amazement, staring at it. Later, his cousin Rocky approached him. Hey, man, not bad. Not like your usual. I heard the coin drop. We all did. You had another one, right? Hey, pretty good. I like it. You need to do more of that. You figured out how to make being a rotten magician into a thing. Everybody thinks the trick is dead in the water, and then it works. Hey, it's a hoot. You know, we all used to call you the great Whodummy. Rocky clapped him soundly on the back and joined the rest of the family at dessert. Simon Fisher forced a smile and quickly retreated to the basement where no one else could see him so he could study the coin. It was the same one. It had a tiny scratch mark above the date. He didn't have the coin. He knew he didn't. But when he reached behind the child's ear, it was in his hand. What the hell, he wondered. Simon Fisher was part of the wallpaper of life, and he hated it. He was a bleakly average man, and he was painfully aware of his firmly established mediocrity, but he was determined not to be lost in the mass of humanity. His burning desire was to distinguish himself above the herd, to be seen, to be admired, to be singled out. Simon Fisher loved magic, and he had decided that magic was the key to his ascendance. He would place his fate in the mysterious arms of legerdemain. To that end, he studied all the legends of magic and illusion. Houdini, Thurston, Cardini. He studied the contemporary greats like Copperfield and Criss Angel. He hungered to be cool and spooky like them. Where he could, he watched recordings of their acts, studied their illusions, and practiced relentlessly on his own small bag of tricks. Instinctively, he knew he had to start small. Things like levitation, disappearing elephants, vanishing in a flash of fire. Those things would have to wait for him to master. He would stick to card and coin tricks, suddenly appearing bouquets of flowers, illusions he could both afford and perfect for his early audiences. Later, he thought, he would do the big things, like hairbreadth escapes from submerged trunks or catching bullets in his teeth. Something breathtaking and dangerous. The brutal truth was that he lacked the dexterity for sleight of hand. Most of the time, as with this pathetic little trick, he fumbled cards and dropped coins. Props from illusions would get stuck in his sleeves before the reveal. His patter was wooden, and he was not particularly charming or cool. He could feel his mediocrity rising up behind him to swallow him, but he would not give in to it. He would not accept being lost. Along with relentless practice, he slavishly studied the legends and lore of magic through the ages. Online, he looked for arcane texts few people knew about. He searched libraries for snippets of grimoires, spell books, books of incantation, histories of alchemists, witches, and warlocks, and anyone who had been deemed in possession of magic, whether divine or internal. He desperately sought after some mystic connection that would elevate him from his mundane and tawdry attempts at prestidigitation. He looked down at the coin again. He knew he had dropped it. He felt it slip from his cupped hand. Both his hands were empty, but when he reached behind Benny's ear, it was there. In the succeeding weeks, more unexplained events happened. He was still working for practically nothing: children's birthday parties, women's clubs, charity events. Shortly after the reappearing coin, he was at an event attempting to find a chosen card selected at random from a deck. He held the card out away from himself so the audience could see the card. The trick was to palm the card while he shuffled the deck and then reinsert it for the reveal. But he dropped the entire deck and it scattered all over the floor of the gymnasium. The audience gasped a little and laughed at the obvious mistake. He could feel himself sweating again. In a desperate attempt to fake it, Simon picked up a card lying face down and held it up to the audience, and in a quavering voice asked, Is this the card? The audience laughed uproariously. He turned the card to see it was the card. He actually jumped when he saw it. The audience laughed even harder. But then they burst into applause. Some people even cheered. The great Houdummy echoed in his memory, and his face burned with confusion and embarrassment. He bowed awkwardly and slowly backed out of the gym. His foot caught the edge of a folding chair, and he stumbled, nearly falling, and the audience laughed uproariously again, and their applause increased. He left without even collecting his fee. What's going on? He wondered as he pounded his fist in his head. Had he placed a duplicate card in the deck and it was luck? Was it in his sleeve pocket and he forgot? Did he palm it? He was afraid he was losing his mind. In the successive weeks, similar events happened. Botched tricks turned out successfully. Flowers he did not plant in hidden linings would appear while he attempted other illusions, scaring him and delighting the audiences. At one performance, doves flew from his hands. He did not own doves. When this last phenomenon happened, he ran screaming from the room, and he hid until the thunderous applause and call for encore pulled him back. Stunned and fearful, he re-entered haltingly and sweating. The audience rose to its feet, applauding and laughing uncontrollably. When he was finally alone at home, he looked at himself hard in the mirror. Why is this happening? What is going on? Then his reflection in the mirror slowly smiled at him. He screamed and turned away. He stood there for a moment, his hair on the back of his neck standing on end. When he turned back, there he was. No smile. Just a look of deep fear in his eyes. He sat in the dark for hours trying to understand what it all meant. For a week, he refused to go out. People were calling, having heard about his performances. They wanted to book him. That had never happened before. Before, he had to canvass for jobs, take whatever he could get. But now he was in demand. People wanted Simon Fisher, the comic magician. Comic! There was nothing funny about it, he thought. But they wanted him. Whatever this was, they knew about him. He was almost somebody. He wasn't a pathetic lost soul submerged with the rest of the human herd. He told himself that some mystical force was helping him. Somehow, all his work, all his ambition had pulled in unseen spirits to come to his aid. Must be a good thing. Fate wanted to become one of the greats. He couldn't deny fate, could he? In the successive weeks, he ventured back to performing, and the reputation of Fisher the comic magician, or Funny Fisher, or Funny Magic Guy, spread across town, and he was inundated with bookings. As much as he hated being thought of as, or being seen as a comic comedian, he was making money. He could afford better props and equipment. He could develop new illusions and change the crowd's impression of him. He could be cool like Copperfield and Chris Angel. He bought a vanishing box, a box that would allow him to make larger things seem to appear and disappear. He worked with it day and night for a week. In his first performance with it, he chose a couple from the audience, a young woman with a much older man, and he said to the woman, "This is the box of truth. I want you to write on this slip of paper how you feel about your companion. Don't show it to anyone." The young woman wrote and handed the slip of paper to Simon. Simon had planted a beautiful rose in the hidden compartment for the reveal. He placed the paper in the box where everyone could see it and covered it with a cloth. He mumbled an incantation, removed the cloth, and opened the box to reveal an old battered wallet. The man jumped up, turned beet red, and felt his pocket. The audience began to laugh. The young woman was dismayed. Simon was totally unsettled. He picked up the wallet and held it out to the man apologetically. Is this yours? The man grabbed the wallet roughly and marched from the room, with the young woman following him, protesting earnestly. The audience laughed and applauded with delight. He used the box again, this time with a middle-aged couple. He told the man to write what he thought of his wife. Again, there was no rose. In its place was an old dish rag. The woman cried, and the man got up and punched Simon before walking out. Each time Simon used the box of truth, someone in the audience would go away embarrassed, and the audience loved it. They couldn't get enough. But Simon had no idea what was happening. It bothered him that he had no control over his magic, or whatever this was. He decided to try the box on himself. He placed a rose in the compartment and wrote down what he thought of himself, a man with great promise. He placed the cloth over the box and mumbled the incantation. The box was empty. There was nothing in it, or in the compartment. Obviously, he thought, the trick won't work for me. Simon decided he needed to do something different. He hated the comedy aspect of his act. He wanted something mysterious and dangerous, something exciting. So he bought a sword cabinet. The piece of equipment required that he hire an assistant. The assistant was to step into the box, but unseen by the audience, slip behind a panel. Then Simon would thrust sharpened swords into the box, while the girl screamed in terror, only to reveal her at the end unscathed and perfectly whole. He hired Wendy, one of his cousin Rocky's girlfriends, for the new trick. She learned quickly, and she screamed with alarming realism as Simon thrust the swords into the empty first compartment. Within a week, Simon judged the illusion was ready. This time, he thought, they won't laugh. The Rotary Club had hired him. The performance was to be done at the country club in their main hall. Every notable in town would be there, and he was the featured performer. Following dinner, the hall filled up and the lights went down as Simon began his act. He did the usual card and coin tricks, with the usual clumsy mistakes, none of them planned. He hated himself every time a trick went wrong, but every time the mystical power seemed to touch him and the trick would turn out in some new way that completely surprised him. Every time the audience laughed and applauded, and every time it made Simon's blood boil. Finally, it came time for the sword cabinet. Ladies and gentlemen, all kidding aside, all laughter aside, tonight I bring you a new illusion, one that requires absolute concentration and your absolute silence. Wendy rolled out the cabinet. This is the cabinet of death. I will open it. You see, it is empty. These are sharpened swords. I drop the silk handkerchief on the blade and see! It is cut in two by its own tiny weight. My assistant will now step into the cabinet of death, and I will thrust these swords through her, but I will cast a spell on her, protecting her from death. Wendy? Simon escorted the girl into the box and locked it as the audience nervously shuffled on its feet. He could hear some of them breathing heavily. Behold the cabinet of death! He shouted this as one by one he inserted the swords. Wendy screamed and screamed again. A woman in the audience also screamed, and Simon felt the thrill of finally being taken seriously as a serious magician. After the final sword had been inserted, Simon rotated the box and ceremoniously unlatched the door. Wendy lurched from the box with a sword stuck clear through her abdomen. Gouts of blood were running down her pink costume. The audience gasped, uncertain whether or not this was part of the illusion. Wendy! Wendy! Simon caught the girl and tried to lay her on the floor as gently as he could. He was stunned for a moment. The audience gasped, seeing his total fear, and then someone in the audience began to laugh and applaud. Some of the others around him thought he was right, and they began to applaud. The reaction rippled through the crowd, but Simon was riveted to the image of Wendy on the floor, unconscious in a pool of blood. He rose, uncertain what to do. Then, looking out at the audience applauding, and he dashed into the cabinet and shut the door. The audience applauded louder. After a moment, Wendy got up off the floor. She took the phony sword from her belly and curtsied elaborately. The audience went crazy, calling, "Simon! Simon! Simon!" Wendy went over to the cabinet and opened it. But Simon was not there. She looked behind the cabinet and around it, which heightened the laughter to great intensity. The disappearance of Simon Fisher was never solved. His assistant had told the police, "Rocky suggested it. He said it would improve the act. I don't know where he went." It was thought for a while that it was all part of his act, an elaborate way to get attention. Simon's mother hired detectives. His family searched, but they never found him. People chuckled curiously when they told the story. But after a few months, Simon Fisher, the comic magician, was well and truly lost. I hope you enjoyed The Mystery of Simon Fisher, and I hope that you'll join us again for our next story. Our next story, in fact, our next two stories, are something of an experiment. They are related stories. They're related by their main characters, a mother, Simka, and her daughter, Eddie. In the first story, Simka, we find a young woman who's born into a culture with which she feels no relationship. She yearns for something far different, with far more freedom. I hope you'll join us for Simka, and I hope that you'll subscribe so that we can let you know when the next story is available. We release one every 3 weeks. If you prefer to listen, you can listen to us on Spotify or Apple. In the meantime, stay well, do good, and I'll see you then.